Breaking down the Chicago Bears of 2024 is a frustrating and maddening sort of affair, and not the John Maddening sort of affair. This has been just an incredibly underachieving season in a way that it's disheartening, disenfranchising to a lot of people. We're going to break all this down. If you like this type of content, make sure you hit the like button. We're going to wrap up 2024 and we're going to look forward to 2025. With that, let's get after it. First up, obviously, we need a coach. And the people over at Bears Wire, USA Today, have put together a list of the most intriguing candidates, and they've ranked them with number one being Ben Johnson. I think that the consensus here has been that Ben Johnson is the number one guy. Now, you individually might like somebody else. You might like Joe Brady. You might like Mike Vrabel. You might like Brian Flores, whose name has been mentioned because he was a roommate with Ryan Poles and he was a friend of Kevin Warren. So there's a few names out there that you're probably looking at, and you have your own opinion. You might also be looking at it saying, well, I don't want to continue what we've done before, so you don't want a prospect. And Ben Johnson is a prospect, if nothing else. He's never had a head coaching job, but he is the number one guy on this list. And you saw the passion, you saw the energy if you watched the game last night. Ben Johnson all over the field, just absolutely getting his team locked in and motivated. That's the type of inspired sort of stuff that you wanted to see and that you like to see in Mike Vrabel. You're watching it playing out real time. Ben Johnson is literally auditioning for a head coaching job on the sidelines as an offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions right now, and you should like what you see. Now, Ben Johnson, still a young guy, but he's easily the top candidate. He's 38 years old, described as an intense coach who demands excellence. Guys, this is exactly what we've been looking for out of a coach. Now, is that any different than anybody else who we think has been doing the same thing? No, it's not. But it's whether or not he holds people accountable, whether or not he makes the good moves that we'll find out whether or not that is the case, right? So we'll know very, very quickly whether or not Ben Johnson is that guy. If he's not, then I think no matter what, we're still a better team. And I'll show you why in just a moment. Number two on this list is Joe Brady. Joe Brady, the offensive mind that brings you Josh Allen. But listen, Josh Allen is kind of in a league of his own at this point, along with maybe Patrick Mahomes. So it is complicated to say that Joe Brady is doing this on his own. He hasn't really had a lot of time. He's been the OC for a short period of time, replacing Ken Dorsey. So, the question would be whether or not this is the guy for this position. And I'm not sure that he is or is not. I think that when you are the age of your players, it creates, I would prefer to have somebody who's 38 versus 35. Doesn't mean that the talent is any different, but it does mean that the wisdom and experience might be a little bit different. So I would prefer Ben Johnson over Joe Brady, despite the fact that the Buffalo Bills have been really, really good offense so far. Number three on the list is Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel, he's got a pedigree. 54-45, I want to say, for the Tennessee Titans over a couple years. 2 playoff appearances. Look, he fell out of favor, but he led them 3 times in 6 seasons, winning 2 games and getting to the AFC Championship in 18. He outdueled Bill Belichick in a playoff game, got the most out of Ryan Tannehill as quarterback. I think that it is my opinion that Mike Vrabel is the man that we should want if there were no Ben Johnson. He's hard-nosed. This team needs toughness. He presents and brings toughness to this team, and probably doesn't have that $15 million price tag that Ben Johnson has. So there is a possibility that he is the man. Also up is Liam Cohen, who has turned around Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. Here's the problem that I have with Liam Cohen. I think Baker Mayfield was a talented quarterback in a bad situation in Cleveland, and that he didn't get a fair shake or a fair opportunity, and we're seeing the result of that on the field now. And I don't think that has to do with Liam Cohen. I think that has more to do, in my opinion, with the fire of Baker Mayfield. Now, again, I'm going to say the same thing and go back. The same thing applies with Josh Allen and Joe Brady. I think that, these guys are just, the circumstances put them together, and I don't think that that makes them elite. I think that Jared Goff, being a castaway from Detroit, is slightly different because Jared Goff had only been there for a couple of years and was having trouble finding that hump to get over it, right? Ben Johnson found a way to get this guy working and on the right page. Now, when I go back to Joe Brady, a lot of that was done with Ken Dorsey. When I look at Liam Cohen, I can get that same feeling, but here, he split time between pros and college and had a poor year as an OC with the Rams in 22. And that, by the way, is after the Super Bowl win of 2021 with Matthew Stafford, as Jared Goff was becoming that Detroit guy. So I'm not as sold here. Kellen Moore, guys, I'm sorry. Kellen Moore was he was a quarterback. In my mind, I don't think that he's ready right now. Jalen Hurts is having a very efficient season, but again, I'm looking at the age just a little bit. And by the way, don't hold me to that age. Look, age is just a number, as any thirst trap will tell you. So I like, but don't love. Then you have Cliff Kingsbury. I actually like Cliff Kingsbury and think that he should be higher on this list, merely because of his affiliation with Caleb Williams, but I'm not sure that he's the guy for that job. However, he has dramatically, and I want to say dramatically turned around the Washington Commanders offense. Now, we can attribute that to Jaden Daniels, but when we look statistically at Jaden Daniels versus Caleb Williams, it's not superior in any way, okay? So I don't feel like Jaden Daniels was a better guy. I think Cliff Kingsbury would have made the Chicago Bears a much better offense ultimately, and I think that not choosing him, it's just a boneheaded decision, just a boneheaded by this team, going for Shane Waldron over Cliff Kingsbury. Although despite that, by the way, I was happy with Shane Waldron. Just didn't turn out to be that way, and there were questions about Shane Waldron, but questions that we didn't listen to until after. But Cliff Kingsbury, he had prior experience with the Arizona Cardinals and got the most out of Kyler Murray. And now he's doing the same thing with Jaden Daniels and got them to the playoff. Like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like this is absolutely insane. Then you have Brian Flores out here, defensive coordinator. Now, do we want a defensive coordinator? Ultimately, I think it matters for the purpose of Caleb. I think we need an offensive coordinator or an offensive mind. But if there are defensive people, Mike Vrabel is number one. Brian Flores is going to be number two for me. Mike McCarthy, no chance. Let's skip that one already and say no way. Pete Carroll, no chance. Not that I don't like Pete Carroll, not that I don't like Mike McCarthy, but those ships have already sailed. And then we have Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions. I've already said my piece here. I have no interest in that, so we're going to stop that at the top 10. This is Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Brian Flores game to win or lose, with a wild card being Cliff Kingsbury. So those are the people. But let's move on here. The question now is, what about Ryan Poles? It appears we finally got an answer on Ryan Poles' fate. Now, a lot's been being made about Ryan Poles and the mistakes that he's made. And we've kind of dressed over some of the successes, or we've kind of minimized the successes of Ryan Poles. However, we should probably not do that. We should probably be looking at this a little bit differently, despite the fact that we're clearly not. But Ryan Poles has done an admirable job of putting a team together, and here is where the problem starts. This is where we break down, okay? Did he do enough to shore up the defensive line? No. Did he do enough to shore up the offensive line? Also no. However, he did create a better on paper line, in my opinion, for both sides than we had the season before. Here's what went on. Nate Davis finally flamed out in training camp, leaving the job basically to Ryan Bates. Ryan Bates has been on the injured reserve list for almost the entire season. He just couldn't make the feat. Coleman Shelton looked very bad in the first game, did an okay sort of job in the second game, got a little bit better in the third game, but he's been kind of, at this point, reliable after that fact. But the problem was that the guard play kind of took a dive. Now, at one point, we had Bill Murray, who was just a journeyman, who came in and he did a pretty decent job. We even had Matty Pryor, who came in and did okay. But we had this shifting offensive line scheme that makes no sense to me to this day, coming out of Shane Waldron and Chris Morgan. Why Chris Morgan is here is just beyond me at this point. But, we saw these things kind of develop. Then we saw Andrew Billings go down. Andrew Billings is our run stuffer because Justin Jones is no. And that left Gervon Dexter, who's in his second year, who was having a good year, but is not a successful run stopper. So we weakened our defensive line a little bit with Andrew Billings coming out and Zach Pickens showing that he was clearly not ready for the prime time. That left us with moving DeMarcus Walker to the inside, Darrell Taylor to the outside. There were a lot of different moves that were having to be made over time and in easing Austin Booker into the NFL rotation. And then Gervon Dexter goes down. And we've had problems with Montez Sweat. Whether he can make the field as well. So, clearly we didn't have the depth, but we didn't really do much when we did have the depth, if you will, an opportunity. So what I'm trying to say here is Ryan Poles did the job. And there were certain plays that he could have probably made, picked up a defensive end to create more pressure, stuff like that. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but that doesn't underscore the fact that he did an okay job of, number one, rebuilding the backup on the offensive line and just, crossing his fingers and winging it on the rest of it, saying, you know what, I think we did enough to get better and that the problem has been coaching. Well, it wasn't coaching, it was injuries. So I would say give him a pass at this point. I know you don't want to. Most of you probably don't want to. Most of you probably don't like it. But here's what's happened. We've got leaks coming out, and it says this. The biggest question about that prime candidates have is about the role of team president Kevin Warren, and I think the McCaskey family is aware of that. To that end, GM Ryan Poles is set up to run point on the search. So Ryan Poles getting fired seems to be out of the equation at this point. Ownership still believes in Ryan Poles and trusts him to find the right person to lead the franchise. And I'm told it's because that's the way ownership wants it. Kevin Warren will have a seat at the table and a major say, of course, but Ryan Poles will too, as the McCaskey seek alignment on the football operation side. So these are the guys that kept Matt Eberflus last season. So it would stand to reason that they're probably going to go with Ryan Poles and continue on with Ryan Poles, no matter what is happening right now. Look, the wheels fell off. But here's the other part. We have a much better quarterback than we've had before or ever, I might add. So I think the fact that he was able to finagle that he was able to bring in DJ Moore, that he was able to find a couple of good draft picks. I mean, when you go down this list here, Tyreek Stevenson not having the best of years, but Gervon Dexter has looked fantastic. Darnell Wright has looked really good. There's been moments where, look, and you can question it, and there are moments where you look at the tape and you say, Jesus Christ, how could you not pick up your block or something like that if you're maybe Braxton Jones or, there's boneheaded plays that have happened. But a lot of this is the protection schemes are not lining up with the plays, and it just looked weird on tape. Like, why are we doing this? It should be noted that when Thomas Brown took over the offense, we simplified the protection scheme, and for a little while, it looked a little bit better. But the problem was the team had already given up on the season. I mean, and not everybody. Not everybody just give. But enough people give up on plays that it starts to wear on the team. So that's what we saw happen. Now, ultimately, let's look at some stats in 2024 and see where we really are. And, I'm going to zoom out here just a little bit to get all this on the page here, but I'm going by yards from an offensive standpoint. And the Bears, really middle of the pack, not great, not setting the world on fire by any stretch of the imagination, but we've got 3,754 yards so far this season. That's really kind of middle of the pack. Now, are we elite? No, we're right here with the Packers. The Packers are 11-5. When you come down here and you start to look at some of this stuff, then you got to be asking yourself, we're a couple of plays away from just an entirely different season. When you look at first downs, this is where it starts to get this is where it starts to get bad. This is where you see the Bears only have 170 first downs. It's in the bottom half of the league. First down percentage. And we are up here at the league, which, by the way, it's actually, we're doing it in reverse order. So that's, we don't want to see that. And also long play. Here are the long plays. And guess what? Bears, let's go find the Bears. Bears have had 54 plays of 20 yards or more. I mean, we're not putting out, So let's look at the defense and let's see, because we know what the offense is. We know the offense has been mid at best, low end of the spectrum. But what about the defense? The defense ranks around the middle of the pack towards the top, 3,754 overall yards. But look, it's way down here at 3,000 yards. The Titans have been clearly superior. So when we look at it, middle of the pack, it's more towards the bottom of the pack. But here we are. How many touchdowns have been given? Bears only given up 17 touchdowns. And the Bears, middle of the pack again, 11 interceptions. And first downs, how many first downs have the Bears given up? And when you look at the list, you come down here, 170. Again, towards the bottom. So they've done a decent job. Not a fantastic job, but here, this is where it gets really interesting. Giving up plays of 20 yards or more. This is the secondary, right? This is the vaunted Bears secondary is fourth in the league, giving up 54 plays of 20 yards or more. That is nonsense. And then plays of 40 yards or more. The Bears are in the top half of the league, having given up 9 plays of 40 yards or more. So ultimately, this defense has done a very, very poor job of whatever it was looking to do. If it was looking to be good, not even close. So, I don't know what to tell you in that regard, other than the Bears they have. Now, when we look at the offensive side of the ball, the Bears are at the bottom of the league or close to the bottom of the league with 3,400 passing yards. When you look at it from a touchdown standpoint, the Bears are near the bottom of the league with only 19 touchdowns. When you look at it from an interception standpoint, the Bears are ranked third in the league in interceptions. They've given up fewer interceptions than any other team, not named the Chargers or the Raiders. Now, first downs, how many first downs? Again, bottom of the league. The defense and the offense have performed incredibly poorly overall. So that begs the question, what is 2025 going to be? And the best thing that I can tell you is that once we have the clarity of a new head coach, we can then move forward with the plan. We're going to do a lot of mock drafting. We're going to start looking at a lot of players going into 2025 and figuring out what is this lineup going to look like for the Chicago Bears going forward. My guess would be no more Keenan Allen. My guess would be that there's probably a shocking trade or two in order to bring in some more talented people in positions of need. I think this is Tremaine Edmonds probably last year. $23 million for a middle linebacker who doesn't do a great job, but a good job. This is too much, especially when you're paying TJ Edwards, I want to say $13 million to be your leading tackler and really the heart of the defense. So I feel like that there's some changes that are probably going to get made that we're going to question along the way. But the end result here is we'll probably pick up some very tough players, and you're going to see a transition. And look, I got it wrong. I told you 13-4, and we're going to probably end up 4-13. I got it absolutely reversed on what the Bears' result was going to be. And I had a lot of faith in this team, and I had a lot of faith that Matt Eberflus would learn from past mistakes and make something positive happen, and I was absolutely wrong. Look, at 4-2, I was already absolutely wrong. And then Tyreek Stevenson started playing with the fans instead of playing football and gave up and even deflected the ball into the hands of the receiver so that Washington could win a come-from-behind Hail Mary, and the season fell apart from there. So we had it all wrong. And we're now on a 10-game losing streak and cannot get, by the way, the number 1 overall pick. We've won too many games, so it's impossible. But should be a top 5, maybe top 6, top 7 pick. We'll see what it looks like coming up very soon, and maybe get excited for the next season. Chicago Bears, this is New Year, so best of luck to each and every one of you. Have a happy New Year, and we will see you again on the 1st. Bear down.